Cool. So, there's still a lot of people coming in. But so anyway, I'll start anyway, because otherwise we'll run out of time sooner. And this is sort of like a companion talk to the one I was doing before. Well, it's not actually, but they're complementary, which makes sense because the stories I tell, they're coming from my actual life. So I'm not telling any, well, theoretical stuff, but it's just me, the stuff I do, right? So, and that makes it, for me, nice to tell and also easy to tell. The interesting thing about this talk, the Getting Unstuck talk, is that I started doing that a while ago. And I do the same thing with my talks as I do with my code. I refactor them continuously. So fairly recently, about a week or 2 or 3 ago, I refactored this one, but I still kept the title slide, but it's now being refactored into a different talk, which is now called 7 Habits of a Mostly Successful Team. And it's sort of like sometimes I want to have a fresher look at stuff. So this is the evolved version of the talk that was actually on the program. It's still the same topic, but it's slightly refurbished. So, and I'm referring to mostly successful, and it's because, so I work for this nice e-commerce company, and we have a quarterly really big sale. It's called the Hunt. And during the Hunt, we have 10 to 20 times the amount of traffic that we have on regular days. And also this time, they decided that the Hunt, which usually lasts 2 days, will last 3 days. So this was like a couple of weeks ago. That's why I rebranded the deck, basically. And everything broke down. So we had a terrible outage on the first day, and we couldn't figure out what happened, and we had to put this on the website during our quarterly big sales. This is terrible, right? So I went deep into the dust for the management team, for the rest of the management team, to explain what happened and why we could not have foreseen this. They were like, no, you should have tested everything. I'm like, yeah, we're 13 people. We don't have chaos engineers, right? We just can't do this. So that's why I'm not saying 7 habits of a highly successful team. We are successful or even highly successful. But even then, shit hits the fan. It just does, right? This is our industry. There's nothing that is perfect. So why do you think, well, why does he talk about 7 habits? Well, it comes from this book, right? You've seen this book. You may have read it. It's a nice book. It's called 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. However, people, yeah, okay, individuals. So what I explained this morning as well already is that software development is not something you do individually. It's a team sport, right? Software development is basically too complex, and I'll try to explain to you where that comes from, why it's so complex, and what we can do about it. But the thing is, it's too complex to be an individual sport, right? You cannot measure individuals in software development. Like our CEO came up to, yeah, but I want to know of everybody on the whole company, so all the other teams as well, what the output is and how we can compare the different developers to each other. And I said, you can't, because they work together continuously, right? So you can't measure the individual people. We are a team, basically. So the problem that I try to solve with my current team, I'm going to try and explain it to you because it's a big problem, and we had to do a lot of things to go in the direction that we're going to. So this is the actual story. All the pictures are in there are real. They're all from my own team. These are Gisela and Menno, people on my team, and it starts here. This is, by the way, the CEO and the chief marketing officer of our company. They said, can we be in your deck? I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll take your picture. So I took their picture in the office, and now they're in my deck. Doesn't mean anything, they're just nice people who wanted to be in my deck. So here's the actual problem. When I got to this particular company 4.5 years ago, they were in big trouble. They started out as a company that had a single deal on a web page like 20 years ago. And literally they changed the deal every day. So they have every day new deals. And it started really simple. One deal on a static web page, Excel spreadsheet, done, right? And then they grew and they grew. And when they started growing, they started realizing that there was need to have software for particular stuff. So they were like, okay, we have this website. And they didn't like the website anymore, so they started building a new one. And the project was called Next. As all projects that renew something are called Next in any company whatsoever. This is probably my 7th Next project that I've seen. It failed, by the way, because they couldn't get it done. And they had a mobile app that hadn't been released for 1.5 years, which as an e-commerce company is not the best place to be in. And then they built up all of these legacy systems over time, right? So they started with an ERP system, which was an open source system by itself pretty good, but then we started adding also, or they, because it wasn't there yet, but started adding all sorts of stuff onto it, which makes it impossible to go to the next version. I think the current version is 18, not 100% sure, and I think we're on 8. Which means and they release it once per year, right? So we're way, way back. And that gets you into all sorts of trouble. And then all the other systems started to come up, all from open source, and all extended into the extreme. So nobody knew how these systems worked anymore. Like there's a CMS system in PHP, which we actually are retiring on Monday. And at some point in time, they needed to have user accounts. And they were like, what? We have PHP developers now who can do this. Let's put it in the CMS. It's not a good idea to put your user accounts, especially if they're 2.3 million, into the CMS system, which is not meant to do user account stuff, right? So you get all sorts of these stupid mixtures. And they're like, you know what, we're going to do microservices. Yes, that'll solve everything. It didn't. Not that microservices are bad. I love microservices, but they did it in a way that didn't make any sense. The approach to it was really wrong. And then they put it on every cloud you can think of. We just don't do AWS just because, but it's everywhere. And we connect to a whole bunch of external parties, payment providers, marketing tools, whatever you do. The problem with our domain is that we have everyday new deals, which means a lot of stuff that marketing tools offer by default, like people who bought this also bought this, we cannot do because we have new deals the next day. That makes it really complicated. So we have to sort of do a lot of stuff ourselves, but a lot of companies don't have to do that. They can just implement Shopify. And then there's data. And there's data everywhere, right? Every little system has part of our data. And because they all have part of our data and they all need overlap in data, what happened is they started to sync that data. At some point in time, any approach, any technique that you can come up with for syncing data between systems and databases, we do, right? From one database directly into another database. From one database exported into a CSV, imported into another database. Using messaging systems, using enterprise service buses, using whatever you can come up with. They all had it. And as a result, they got totally stuck because the amount of work that they needed to do to just keep it alive was so big that they couldn't innovate anymore. They went down from there at some point in time 20 years ago into the red bar. And when I got there, they could not innovate anymore. They couldn't release anything anymore, literally, right? So they were totally stuck. As an e-commerce company that needs to grow because it's funded, right? Because by private equity, that means you need to grow. If you don't grow, well, they'll throw you out. So they were actually stuck, really, really stuck. So the problem is that it's usually the tech people who get the blame. Because that's easy, right? We're introverts. Well, I'm not, but most of the people on my team are. When I got there, they were all. And that's fine, because that's the way we are wired, basically. But that makes us easy to blame stuff, right? So it's like, yeah, you have this monolith, and monoliths are bad. These days, it's now microservices are bad, right? But it doesn't really matter anyway. So, or basically like, yeah, we have all this legacy, right? And we have all this technical depth. The previous talk was a lot about technical depth as well, which is really cool. But it's the technical depth. That's the problem. This, by the way, is the Pantheon in Rome. It's a beautiful building. It's 2,000 years old. It still functions. Do you think that's going to happen to your code? Getting 2,000 years old and still function? Well, only if you write COBOL, but that's probably the exception, right? And then it's all the dependencies, dependency skills. Yeah, they do, actually. That's the problem. That's part of the problem. But where do they come from? They don't come from us doing stupid stuff, because at any point in time, we make the best choices that we can at that point in time, given the knowledge that we have. That is why the previous speaker said, defer all your decisions to the latest moment possible, which is true. But sometimes you have to make a decision. But the problem is this. It's not us. That's good, right? It's not us. It's somebody else. Yes, we can blame somebody else. The only problem is that somebody else is in power. Right? That's the problem. It's always the organization. It's always the culture, right? It's like everybody comes to us and says, we need this, and we need this now. And what we need is most important. And if everybody does that, we as tech people cannot make decisions, right? Even if we're allowed to make decisions, which we're often quite not. That means that at any point in time that we say, yes, we do want to take care of the rut. We do want to take care of the technical debt. We do want to take care of getting it nicely done and retheming our website because, well, we finally should do this thing. There's always somebody in the organization who's going to say, no, 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 no. Well, you don't do that. We need this new feature out now, this week. Why? Well, because it grows our revenue, average order value, whatever you might have, right? And you're like, yeah, but I also want to do this refactoring. Yeah, that can do later, right? That's where technical debt comes from. This is basically the problem. It's the problem that we do not take care of what we do. And we don't do that because we're sort of like forced into it by the people who are saying to us that they need the new features. If that's the manager, the product owner, the scrum master, whatever that may be, right? Doesn't matter. In my case, it's usually the COO. He's quite pushy. And I try to push him out of my team continuously. And he knows that. So there's always this battle, right? But you have to fight that battle. Otherwise, you don't get there. That's probably my role in the organization. And then there's also people saying stuff like this, right? This is terrible. I got into a discussion about pull requests on LinkedIn. I get into nasty discussions all the time on LinkedIn. I like that, actually. It's quite funny. It's like I throw in these really weird opinions and stuff, and people are like, no, you cannot do that. And then, so long thread, right? So connect on LinkedIn to me, and you have all these funny discussions showing up on your timeline. So allowing less experienced devs to receive feedback later is a better approach than pulling senior resources, I think he means people, away from critical high priority work. Now, people who say that, I don't really trust. Also, this guy is a senior software engineer, C++, and he wears a suit. That's also a sign that it's probably not correct, right? But this is like, ugh, I don't want to go there. This is not what I want to do. And here's the thing. There's always change, right? We cannot go around the fact that there's change everywhere, all the time, in our life, etc. Again, I'm throwing in the really nice Finding Nemo quote in here, right? But so just to introduce myself, I'm using the same introduction as this morning. So if you've seen, did you all see my opening keynote this morning? In that case, I'll do the introduction really quick, and I make the same jokes, but I do it quicker. So this is me. I'm a single independent dad. I have 3 grown-up kids. I live in Amsterdam. No, I told you all that already. So I'm the CTO for ibo.com, which is the e-commerce company I'm talking about. We're active in Belgium, France, Germany. Not in Luxembourg, I think, but, well, I might want to change that. And in the Netherlands, of course, but that's where I come from. This is me. I'm double object-oriented. I made that joke already this morning, but I don't usually do 2 talks on the same day. So, and I live in the Java Street, which is the view from my window. So that proves that I'm a programmer, right? So, and this is our open source framework for doing microservices in TypeScript. Anyway, so 7 habits, right? That's what this was about. So I'll show you all 7. I actually made ChatGPT come up with this. This is quite cool. I gave it a lot of the stuff that we do and a lot of text and input. And I said, cool, I want to write a talk that is pretty much like this talk, but it needs to be called the 7 habits. And it came up with this. It says, well, this is what you guys do. And he was actually, or she was quite right. So we prioritize all the time, right? That's what we do. We try to kill complexity. That's our main job, right? Killing complexity. People come up with stupidly complex problems. We need to make them simple. Otherwise, we can't do it. We need to own the work. And that's about autonomy. And autonomy is highly important. We need to continuously communicate with the rest of the company. And as the previous speaker said, talk their language, right? That's important. You don't talk about technical debt. You talk about increased market value. It's a cool trick. It just works. We do micro teams. I'll tell you a little bit about that too. And we deliver continuously. I'm also going to go into there, and we have fun. Usually, right? Not when the shit, it's the fun, and we have a 3-hour outage, which we cannot do anything about, and we have to wait until somebody does something. That's it. So here's number 1. Number 1 is prioritization. Because there's always change, you need to figure out what you're doing if it's always the most valuable you can do with your time. It quite often is not. Quite often we're building stuff that you might think, why are we doing this? My best friend who's here with me, I'm not sure where she is now, but she applied for a job at a government agency in the Netherlands quite a month or 2 ago, and they were building an internal portal for their employees. And they had spent, with a team of 10 people, already 2 years on it. It wasn't done yet. And you're like, how come they're even allowed to do this, right? Who makes this stuff up? That could never be important as other stuff that you guys might want to do, right? So where does the work come from? Here's an important thing. This is what Nietzsche says. Nietzsche says, he or she probably, but it was years ago, right? So who has a why to live for can bear almost any how. That's pretty cool, right? That means you can indulge Scrum as long as you know where you're going. That's the modern translation of it, right? Or yes, we can do a monolith if we know where we're going, which we often don't do. So this is where it comes from. Purpose. Find the purpose, right? If you can find the purpose, your team and yourself will do better work because you get better motivated. So how do you find the purpose? What I did in this particular company, and this is at a company meeting, I made them try to find the dot on the horizon. And it's not just me, it's just where we are with the management team. So I'm also part of the management team. And this is where we wanted to go. When I got here, the dot on the horizon was, we want to have higher revenue with higher margins. I'm like, I cannot build software for that. Well, how do you want me to do stuff for it? So we started rephrasing it. We started looking into, we want to be Europe's leading deal site. That means multiple countries, multiple languages, multiple currencies even multiple weight systems and measurements and stuff like that. Connecting our community of consumers. It's weird to have a community. We do, actually. It's kind of weird. There's people who moderate stuff on the website, who moderate comments, and they do that voluntarily. The only thing they get out of it is a free t-shirt every year and a dinner with the COO. And they do it. They don't want to be part of it. It's really cool. So we're now going to invest if we can do merchandise, which is also really weird, right? And we do that on a daily basis. This is the core to what we do. With surprising and attractive A-branded products. That is also a part that drives where I'm going with my tech company, my tech team, right? Because our website was so hideously ugly 4 years ago that A-brands did not want to be on our website. It was just too ugly. They said, yeah, but we can't put whatever Lacoste or whatever team, we cannot put it on your website. It's bad for our branding. Okay, so we need to change that, right? So that's a direction. It gives direction. It gives a sense of direction. And as you can only spend your time once, that means you cannot spend it on stuff that you don't want to do. That means you need to prioritize all the time. What we did to get away from the situation we're in, we said we need to spend time on innovation. We allocated time from our tech team on innovation, right? That means during 70% of the time, they cannot work on just solving stupid bugs or just keeping everything running. That means there's stuff we don't do. I got into a discussion with our Polish manager recently, and she said, yes, but we put stuff on the Aztec. I'll tell you what Aztec is in a second. We put stuff on there all the time, and you just don't solve it. And I said, well, we only spend 10% on that. And that means if we don't get to your problem in that 10%, there's other stuff that was more important. She said, no, but this is really important. Yes, I said, well, other stuff might be more important there, which is probably not good English. But so how do we get to the 70%? So this is what we do. I set up a group of people in a company, or we did probably, right? So that is called the tech board. It's not a Jira board. Well, there's also a Jira board involved. But it's a group of people. It's the group of people that together represents the whole company on a, let's say, managerial level that can make decisions on where we as tech should probably spend our time on. So that means items that come in to the tech board, and people can just propose, right? They need to pitch it during the weekly meeting, which is on Thursday morning. It only takes 1 hour. They need to pitch it. And when it's pitched, we ask these questions. The first question is, does it help us to reach the dot on the horizon? If it doesn't, we'll throw it out immediately, right? Too bad, wrong idea. Go do something else. Recently, somebody proposed to rebuild our quality system, the reporting of issues and stuff, and we're like, so how does that relate to our goals? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Okay, bye. We threw it out immediately. Just you don't want to waste any time on that, right? And the second question is, can we actually do this? As a tech team, are we able to actually build this stuff, right? Manager recently said, yeah, I just want to be able to type in natural language any question I have about anything we do, and AI should just answer that. I'm like, that's not entirely how AI works. That's what you think it does because there's so much hype about it, but that's not possible, right? We threw it out. And then the next question is it small enough? If it's too big, it eats out a too big proportion of our time, which means while we're building bigger stuff, we cannot build the other stuff next to it, right? We always have to do multiple things at the same time. Because if we spend the whole team on one thing, and that one thing fails, there are always experiments. If that one thing fails, we cannot continue. And the next question is it actually the most important thing to do now? If it's not, we put it on the someday maybe column. Now, people in the tech board think that we revisit the someday maybe column once every 3 months and then might get their stuff back. We don't. It's basically an archive. But we don't tell them that, right? So don't go out and tell them that. So this is how we make the decisions. There's a Jira report attached to it. So when there's stuff done, this is from a couple of weeks ago, but if there's stuff done, we'll just push it out. And we talk in the tech board and we're like, okay, we have some space to pick up some new stuff. What should we do? And then we vote on the stuff that's upcoming with everybody from the company, which means they need to come to an agreement about what is the stuff that is the most urgent to do now that helps us reach our goals, where we can spend our time on. And that could be something for logistics, could be something from marketing, could come from anywhere, right? And that's the thing. It's making a joint decision in the company. People talk to each other about this, right? So there's no discussions afterwards, like, yeah, we wanted our stuff first, but the stupid marketing people always get their way. No, you were in the discussion, right? This is how it went, and it's good. It's a good mechanism. It kind of works. So I can actually recommend it. If you're stuck, you need to get unstuck, start going in a direction like this. Make these percentages. They don't have to be 70, 20, 10, could be anything, but allocate stuff to getting to move on, right? That's important, because if you don't, you keep on doing the stuff that you're already doing, and you get stuck even more. So the next level is like there's small feature requests coming in from systems that we already have or services that we already have in place. We spend some time on it. It's about 20% of our time. It's not a lot, but it's enough to not make people in the company unhappy who are using these systems. It's just to keep them happy. And then there's the thing that says, well, just 10% to keep the lights on, right? Just to make it running. Stupid stuff like we cannot find the invoice for ABC. Or somebody ordered this, but he couldn't order this because there was something wrong with it. Look into it, please. Or, hey, we don't see the drop-down with the colors. Where are they? Stuff like that. And we just answer that almost immediately. The point is, everybody on my team, so there's also, we actually use a Slack channel for this. People can post anything. I haven't checked this morning, but there's all sorts of stuff coming in. And we, as the tech team, make our own decisions about where to spend our time on. Anybody on my team who's done with what they were doing picks up something that they find on any of these 3 levels that they want to do. I have virtually no say in this. Sometimes they ask me, what do you think I should do? Should we pick up this first or that first? I'm like, yeah, we'll probably do this, but it's your choice. They get to choose, right? That makes them responsible for what they're doing because they do the stuff they want to do. Then the next level is we need to kill complexity. Complexity is a problem in every organization. In our situation, we could not just say, let's rebuild the whole platform. And that takes 6 months and we will rebuild the whole platform. We could not do that in 6 months. We're already 4 years in and we still haven't rebuilt everything because we don't want to rebuild it, we want to renew it. But in the meantime, the store needs to be open. It's an e-commerce. We cannot just shut it down. So we always have to take into account the stuff that's already running. That's complex, right? And we want to take that out, but there's no way around this, right? Because the shop needs to stay open all the time. So the answer to this is you take small steps. And you think, small steps, how does that help? Well, it helps you actually to move around a thing that's called Gold's Law. We want to build a really new e-commerce platform, right? And we're doing that. But on the while, it needs to stay open. And Goal says, a complex system designed from scratch never works and cannot be patched up to make it work. This is why big projects fail. Because if you're trying to build a big system and will release that at once after 3 years, you will have built the wrong thing because life moves on, right? It's the whole problem with it, let alone that the complexity of such a system is so big that you cannot do this. In my case, it was an evolution of 20 years of e-commerce, or when I started 16 years of e-commerce, and they put all kinds of stupid shit and exceptions and stupid rules in there that nobody knows anymore, but that are still there. Like, yeah, I want to push this deal with an S. And I'm like, what do you mean with an S? That happens last week. What does that even mean? Yeah, we do this in our PIMcore system. We put an S in that field and then stuff happens. So what do you mean? What other characters can you put in there? Well, there's a P. What does that do? I don't know. They don't even know it. Nobody knows anymore. It's been there for 10 years and they just do it. It's called cargo culting again, right? So, and that's stupid. So you have to start over with something small. Take it small. And there's another good reason for this. And this is a very important model. Have you seen this? It's called Cynefin. Cynefin is a sort of like a decision-making model. I'm not sure if Dave Snowden likes me to say that in this way, but this is what I use it for. This model describes different zones, and different zones of problems require different strategies to solve it, right? If you are in the clear zone, that means there is a problem that is simple enough and a best practice exists. There's only one way you can handle this, apply the best practice, you're done, right? That's it. If I want to set up a new MySQL database or whatever, or a Mongo database, there's rules to do that. You just do click, 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 done. Fine. You don't have any planning for that, that's it, right? Oh, wait, I'm going too fast. If you're in the complicated zone, that means there is a bunch of possible solutions to the problem you have. That means you need to make a choice. You do some analysis, you write down some requirements, you do a SWOT analysis, and then you implement it, basically. You can do this with any approach, even waterfall, even Scrum, right? However, if you're on the left side of the diagram, you become, your problems are of the complex or chaotic nature. That's different. If you are in the complex environment, that means that the problem that you're trying to solve hasn't been solved before. Well, at least not in this context. Meaning nobody on the team knows how to do this stuff, right? Then what do? The approach is very different, and the approach is called probe, sense, respond. And it means you do experiments. You do small experiments, and you try to figure out if something works. If it doesn't, you do the next experiment. That's pretty much the same as I explained this morning in learning how to play pinball, right? You need to do that experiment, and experiments can fail. And that's a problem. If you're in the chaotic zone, it's even worse. Nobody knows how to do this. The only thing you can do is just go in a direction, and hopefully it's the right one. And until you might end up in the complex, and then from complex you go to complicated, et cetera, et cetera. But you have to realize that most of us are in the complex context. In the complex context, you get into basically the zones 4 and 5 in what Liz says about it. So somebody's done this, but not in this context, as nobody's done this before. If you are there, if in your company you're trying to solve a problem, there's nobody in your company has solved it before, what do? That's where experimentation is key. And there's no other way around it. And again, I have the quote from Jeff Bezos in here that says that, right? A lot of organizations, yes, they do want to innovate and they do want to experiment, but not really, right? They don't want to accept that experiments might fail. And they do, right? So an experiment is a test done in order to learn something or to discover if something works or is true. It could also be false, and you have to take that into account. You need to allow yourself to have failing experiments. Move on to the next experiment. That's why these experiments need to be small, right? And again, if you don't make any decisions, time will pass and you will go out of business. It's just how it works. So as a result, we as developers, we are becoming this. I found this on the internet. I just couldn't leave it out. It's like Cuddy-wumble. I'm not even sure it's an existing word in English, but this is what we do. This is basically the story of my life. To travel purposefully toward an as yet unknown destination. This pretty much describes the whole field of software development, right? This is what we do. And we need to realize, managers also need to realize that this is the case. And there's no better illustration than this one, actually. This is the difference between trying to take big steps and trying to take small steps. Small steps will get you there with little effort, less testing, easier stuff. So take steps smaller. If you think you're already taking small steps, if you think a sprint is small, it's not. It's huge, actually. It's much smaller. So, owning the work. That's number 3, right? Owning the work means we're in this complex industry. And there's a slight overlap between the two talks. That's because I rarely do them on the same day. So, developing software is often complex, but mostly chaotic. That comes from the Cynefin framework. We're always, or almost always, on the left side of the diagram. And once you realize that, you can think differently about what we do, right? It means that we don't have the answers yet to what we're doing, in most cases, right? That is why this industry is so challenging. It's also why it's so much fun, right? And that's why Dijkstra says, I'm going to skip this one, I did this morning as well, the same goes for the next one. So again, if this is your tech stack, and it's the same I showed this morning, you don't know what to do, right? You can't solve this problem. We couldn't. But despite everything we tried, we had 30 people on the team, we could not get rid of this complexity. And the company literally went bankrupt. And it made me realize personally that there's a lot of stuff in there that I really don't know. I can't know everything. And then people say, yeah, but you're the CTO, you need to know everything. No, I don't. There's stuff I know, and there's lots of stuff that I don't know, and that goes for everybody on the team. So that means you need to figure out ways to deal with that without going into having to know everything. You just can't anymore. I couldn't even when I started writing code 40 years ago, because the smallest unit of ownership in the team, if you understand that you cannot know everything, cannot be an individual. It has to be the team. That means you have to work with the other people on your team, whether you like it or not. That means people who like to do things as teams do better work, simply, right? So again, this is my team, and this is where you need to go if you are in a continuous mode of exploration and exploration, which we are and which you are probably too. We need to move into doing continuous experimentation. What setting makes it good to do that? There's one rule here that applies most, and that is you should give the people who do the actual work the autonomy they need to do the work. Because from autonomy becomes, well, you create responsibility. When people have the right to do what they want to do how they do it within limitations, this is when they do their best work, right? I have no problems. If something breaks down over the weekend, my team is motivated enough, highly motivated, I would probably say, that any given time of day, on any day during the week, although they work for 40 hours a week officially, they will open up their laptop wherever they are at that point in time and solve the problem because they feel responsible. And they feel responsible, but you got the right level of autonomy, that they had to make their own decisions all the time. But the thing is with autonomy, it's really hard to do this. I have no recipe for this. I don't know how to say, you're now all autonomous, because that means that people need to make decisions that they don't know how to make. So what happened is that, well, as a result, self-organization is pretty hard, right? So in my team, when I started doing this, I'm like, you make the decisions about what to work on because you know best. And then one of the developers on my team, she said, yeah, but what do you want me to work on? Do you want me to work on EAP? Do you want me to work on a new TypeScript stuff? I'm like, so what's the most important? How can we deliver the most value out of what you're doing? And she said, I don't know, you're the boss. I'm like, yeah, but it's your work. You know a lot better than I, right? How would I know? This is not the work I'm working on right now. So you make the decision. It took her 3 months of massaging until she finally started doing that. Now, 4 years later, she's at a point that she was releasing the ERP system 3 weeks ago, and we wanted to push it on Friday because of the stuff that we wanted to do over the weekend that we couldn't otherwise do. And she said, no, I don't feel safe about it. I don't feel good about releasing it on Friday now because we didn't test it properly. So I'm not going to release it until Monday morning, whatever you guys think. That's a very different. It's the same person I was talking about before, right? It's a very different way of looking at things. She now has full ownership and full responsibility of what she's doing, which is cool, really. But the problem is I don't know how to do this. I can say, well, if you want to draw an L, start with 2 circles. Fine, right? It sort of works. Go there. And they do. But how to exactly do that? I don't know. We're all learning by doing this. And this I found is a really good motivating stuff. This is called the Huck principle. He was the CEO of Pfizer for a while, and he said, simple, clear purpose and principles give rise to complex and intelligent behavior. Complex rules and regulations give rise to simple and stupid behavior, right? If you're after simple and stupid behavior, give people lots of rules. They will. They will just abide. That's just the way it works. But if you take away those rules, what happens? They will come up with ideas for themselves. That's why Huck says, you need to simplify to amplify. Take away rules, see what happens. And there were people asking me after the first talk, saying, yeah, but how do you do that? I thought, just do it. Just take away something and figure out what to do, right? Again, it's the crossroads in my city, in Amsterdam, where people, because they took away, the city council took away a lot of the rules, like the traffic lights. These are rules that we abide. Well, not in Amsterdam, but it's like red is just for me the same color as green if I go through the city, by the way. But by taking away the rules, people need to learn how to communicate with each other because they're acting together, right? I had a conversation with one of the developers on my team earlier this week, or last week actually, about something he started on, but I also started on it. And we tackled it from a different direction. I said, Eugene, we're both started on the same thing, right? We should have worked together on this. And he's like, yeah, you're right. What do you want me to do? I said, well, you make the decision. You make the call. He said, well, I'll just finish it. I'm like, okay, here's my code. See what happens. He did. So that's how it works, right? And then, because, again, it's the same quote, right? Perfection is achieved when there's nothing left to take away, right? So a lot of the procedures and the stuff you do in the way you work, challenge those. Figure out whether they actually add value. What if you take one of those things out, right? What if you take out code reviews? Well, that's a biggie, I'd probably say. But what if you go from a 2-week sprint to a 1-week sprint? What would happen, right? Just try it out. Do that experiment. And in the end, if that works, if your cycles are short enough to facilitate this, well, take away the rest, right? So that's it. So again, there's my team. This is what we don't do. But I'm going to try to show you what we do anyway, right? And I got to the realization, there's no product owner. No, it's because everybody on my team, and Bruce said that quite well when she looked at my talk. She said, everybody on the team is their own product owner. They go out into the business and they challenge the business to see what the details are and what they want. That works perfectly for us. So we don't have those anymore, right? So it's number 4. So what do we do, right? So we do stuff like this. We share knowledge all the time, right? It's continuous movement of knowledge that people have and that they share with other people. And we do this using lots of different techniques. We do event storming if we want to model out processes. There's a new round of event storming coming up soon, I would probably say. And it's a way to describe your process and to get a joint picture of what looks best in the language of the business. Very cool technique. We do a lot of pair programming. It's not mandatory, but a lot of people on my team appreciate it. And we don't do it all the time. But it's not like, this is taken from my own desk. I usually sit here, and this is Eugene in the middle, and I get stuck. I'm like, Eugene, just bear with me, have a look at me at this code. And then Eugene says, sorry, dude, I can't do it right now. And we made an agreement, the two of us, if he's wearing his AirPods, I don't disturb him, because, well, you have to get back into flow, right, and that takes a lot of time. So, but when he's not wearing those, I can challenge him at any point in time. And we work together for a bit, an afternoon, and in reverse we do it as well. But we do it with everybody on the team usually, right? And it changes also doing it in a hybrid mode. It works. Same with mob or ensemble programming, right? Sometimes we look into something, we get stuck. A lot of people just join in. They just come up and say, hey, what are you doing? And have you tried this? Oh, no, wait, what? Do that. Oh, but do that, do that. The knowledge of the group is often very useful when solving complex problems. So we do this. Again, it's not something that we just say, oh no, this afternoon we're going to do mob programming. No, it just comes up. It's dynamic. It's organically, right? And yes, we have lean coffee sessions as well, which is really cool. We do this every Tuesday afternoon. People come up with topics that stuff they did and just want to show. Could be small stuff, could be something bigger, or change they want to do, or talk to the rest of the team, and we vote on stuff, and people get 5 minutes to do the topic, and maybe sometimes we do an extra round of it, and we share the knowledge. And of course, we do stuff like vibe coding. We do this all the time. All of us are working with AI assistants. I'm using Windsurf currently, which I like a lot, actually. It's quite cool. And yes, but the thing with AI, and I have to talk a little bit about it, I guess, is like, remember that we are the ones that solve the problems. It's not the AI that solves the problems. The AI can write the code for us. Sure, it can do. But what it allowed us to do at iBoot is what our marketing manager came up with. He said, well, we actually are now able to do stuff that we couldn't do before because it was too complicated, too much work, like working with these stupid marketing tools that they use and find the synchronization between it, or building it ourselves. We can do it a lot faster than we ever could before. And that's a good thing. So like creating content, we now create content automatically. We use models there, and we just create the content for most of the stuff that we have on the site. We have tons of deals, right? We cannot write all that content ourselves. Like we use any of these models when we just add new ones under the hood in our services anyway, right? Best price online is another thing. We find the best prices online. We built some tools for that using some AI in some parts, and some parts we do ourselves. It sort of works. But it's not a silver bullet, right? AI is no silver bullet. It's not like, here, AI, solve my problems, and it will solve problems. Our managers think it will do that, right? And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way, because it can't. The thing is, yes, we now have faster cars. That doesn't make traffic faster, because you still have to solve the problems that we had at hand, right? Next thing, micro teams. So this is a technique we use a lot. And we came to the realization that we were continuously solving small problems, right? Because we were taking the smallest steps possible. And when doing that, we went into figuring out that no two, oh, that's my ex-girlfriend, no two items that come off whatever board require the exact same skill set. So that means that different people on my team could work in different combinations on different things. And that's good, right? So that means that we sort of started flowing into this recipe. It's like somebody's done with what they were doing, and I'm like, yeah, I'm done. I'm going to pick up something new. I'm going to pick one from the tech board, from the general board, or from the Aztec, whatever. I do something, right? And then other people might join in. They might, oh, yeah, cool. I want to do that, work on that too. So we'll form a band, and we'll discuss. We go out into the business. We do the work. We check in the code. We're done. Next thing. That cycle. And we do that all the time. Like, so here's 3 people working on something. They don't have to be 2 people. It could be 3, could be 4. And they form dynamically, right? This behavior changes every time we do it. There's 2 Java developers and a tester. You can recognize the tester, right? They have to stand. Yeah, that's their punishment for being testers. Here's 2 Java developers. They have beards, right? So they must do Java. And here's an architect and a developer. Of course, the architect is still praying for it to work. The developer probably already knows it doesn't. But that's different setups with different people doing different things, and that happens all the time. So it sort of spreads the context and spreads the learning and spreads the knowledge around the team. And I get into discussions on LinkedIn all the time, like people say, yeah, but does it scale? And I'm like, I don't care if it scales. It's not my company. I don't have 1,000 developers. Luckily, ING said, we do actually, and we're doing it as well. They now call it micro squads. Whatever reason they named it differently, that's up to them. I don't care. So it seems to scale as well. So that's a nice thing, right? So 6, delivering continuously. I have 6 and 7 to go, and then we're through, right? So here's the thing. Delivering continuously meant, when I started in this industry, we do a project for 4 years, and then we wait until it's done, and then it's like, we release it. That never worked, right? So we went from waterfall, and then in the 90s, we went to stuff like Rational Unified Process, sort of now rebranded. It's now called SAFe, or I think even the new edition of Scrum, the Scrum Enhanced Edition, whatever they're doing now, is stupid stuff just to make more money. It's going in this direction as well. But it's the reverse direction, because you need to make your cycles shorter. And the shorter your cycles get, over time we could do more, because tooling and infrastructure got a lot better. So we can actually move most of our organizations into delivering continuously. What does that mean? Well, it means basically that you can also let go of sprint-like stuff, right? Because sprints are sort of like mini projects. And a lot of them are called failed sprints because they cannot resolve the sprint goal that they set out to do. And there's like, yeah, you guys are too stupid. You cannot estimate. You cannot do that work. You cannot even estimate your own work. Well, the result is that just kill the sprints, right? Because you don't have to do those mini projects. Just get rid of them. Because progress doesn't work like that. Because teams are different everywhere you go, right? They're not the same. I was visiting South Africa last year, and I looked at different teams. Like, here's a team of kudos, right? They stay really close because otherwise they're attacked. Just the way it works. And here's a team of rhinos. They don't care. Nobody attacks them anyway. They just walk around and do stuff so they can be more freely, right? And here's a team of developers in Cape Town. This is what they do. We get around in circles and talk, right? Okay, might be a good practice, right? So that's it. Teams are different all the time. That means Agile is not what you think it is, right? A lot of people say, yeah, Agile means doing Scrum and sprints. No, it's not. It has nothing to do with that. Scrum is an implementation of Agile. It's a wrong implementation even. This is what actually, my good friend Alan says this, right? It's not a process or a framework, right? It's the ability to create your own, to work in ways that work for you. And what you want is shorter feedback cycles. Actually, all the talks today are going in the same direction, which is good. Shorter cycles allow you to get faster feedback, and faster feedback is important. So you need to try to deliver value continuously. And as the previous speaker also said, delivering value continuously means you need to do it more often. And this is what Jess Humble, the author of the Continuous Delivery book, says. If it hurts, do it more frequently and bring the pain forward. He's still talking about software, by the way. Just not to get it mixed up, but this is what he does, right? So that means that if you release your monolithical systems every 3 months, there's a big amount of change that you all need to test and integrate on whatever you do, and it slows you down. And you need to go faster, because faster feedback makes you better. The quality becomes higher the sooner you do it, right? So instead of that, it's easier to conceive it like this. So this is the most important slide in the deck, I would say. This is a picture I took in Budapest a couple of weeks ago. The next train is in 1 minute, and the train after that is in 3:30. Will I be rushing to the first train? No, I won't, because the next train comes along 2.5 minutes later, right? That's the point. And Jason Gorman says, missing the bus or the metro isn't the big thing if you know there'll be another one along in 5 minutes, right? If you can only release once every 3 months, you're going to save everything up, and you do a lot of additional work that you don't have to do if you can release every 5 minutes, right? So you need to go into releasing every 5 minutes, or go faster than you did before, because releasing small amounts of work all the time means that the delta between this version and the previous version is only very tiny. And very tiny means less work, means less complexity. In order to go there, you need to automate everything, right? This is the thing you need to do. So you need to build the quality in. So I'm going to, so this again is Demington, right? They said, take out everything that you do afterwards, basically. Build it in. So that means if you have full CI/CD, and this is one of our pipelines, you need to go into the phase where everything is tested everywhere. I think I have that on the next slide. In order to go to production in 15 minutes. We're even trying to make it faster, but it doesn't add too much value to it anyway. But we are going faster. So again, it allows you to code with confidence. And not do pull requests. So I did this part already, right? So I want to move on to the last part, because otherwise I'm so much out of time already. Last part, having fun. Having fun to a lot of companies means they have parties. We actually have our big party on Friday. I'm going to get tremendously drunk, I suppose, because I do that all the time. But it's that having fun is not necessarily being at a bar with your whole team. It might be. It could also be that we're going, I forgot what it's called, but it's really cool, actually. It looks like this. I took it while in a thing like this. But this is my team. Yes, this is big fun, but this is not what it's about. Yes, you should do stuff like this. But what you really should be looking for is the thing that is written, Dan Pink wrote in his book, Drive. It's these 3 things, right? Once you have purpose, mastery, getting better at what you do and allowing yourself to get better all the time, and you have autonomy, which I talked about before, these 3 things make people drive. This is what makes them tick, right? This is what having fun actually means. And as my brother-in-law says, old keys won't open new doors, right? So be open to change. And again, it's the same conclusion I did before. I'm just not doing the mum stuff anymore, but if you want to change something in your organization, any one of the stuff that I told you, or other stuff as well, feel free to do it, because there's only you that can make that change, right? Don't wait for a manager to say we're going to change stuff, because managers don't know. Take it from within. Do the small experiments. Never be afraid to ask all the stupid questions. Never, ever, ever stop learning. That's basically the point, right? So in retro, yes, I'm going to do retro once, but really short. Change is there. It's everywhere. So you better take it into account. The key word to doing XP, extreme programming, is embracing change. That is what it's all about. You need to allow yourself to do that in order to get better. And in order to get better, learning is eminent. Never forget to have fun. If everything else fails, I have this in all my decks. Shouldn't do 2 talks on the same day, right? Just remove your node modules, do an npm install, or use yarn anyway. And those are my tips for today. If you have other things that you want to add or question me or whatever, feel free to do it. I'll be here anyway until there's beer. And thank you for indulging me. 3 minutes overtime or something like that. Yeah, 3 minutes. Thank you.